Coming to paperback and Kindle Unlimited, Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited this March. I got a chance to take a look at the first issue of Omega Black, a brand new African-American manga series. And after reading the first issue of Omega Black, I was very impressed with the job Chris Brown and Jesus Pequeño did on this comic. The writing on this comic is well crafted, and the artwork on this comic is top notch. It captures the spirit of old school manga and tells a great story in the African American fantasy genre. So when it comes down to this Omega Black comic, this is one that I highly recommend you go out and pick up. And it's on Comixology right now for just $1.99. So this first issue is extremely affordable, and this first issue is very accessible. Now, the first issue does a great job of setting up the story. Now, the first issue shows us Planet Omega, which is, the jewel of the galaxy and the home of the Omega Stream, the most powerful force known in the galaxy. And it's the birthright of the 7 family members of the Orion family. Now, Jafar is the oldest in the Orion family, and he is the ruler of Planet Omega. Now, the second son, Shula, is the second most powerful, and he has a problem with his brother running this planet Omega. So everything is setting up for something very interesting. Jafar's wife is pregnant. She's about to have his son, and his son, while he is the main character, while he's not featured in this first issue, we see how his family's past is going to affect his future due to the great way Chris Brown just lays out this story of how these family members are at odds about who will wield this Omega Stream and who will wield the power of this Omega Stream. And as I was reading this comic, it really reminded me a lot of the Egyptian legend of Isis, Osiris, and Seth, because when I look at Shula, he reminds me a lot of Seth, and when I look at Jafar, he reminds me a lot of Osiris. So when I look at them both, they remind me of the Egyptian gods in part of the story, and I see some elements also that remind me of Superman as well, and that all those elements really come together to form a very great piece of what looks like to be a great piece of African American manga. The first issue does an amazing job of setting up the story of this Orion saga, where we see these family members plotting to take down King Jafar, and they all try to use their power to bring him down, and eventually it leads to the conflict between the family members eventually leads to ultimately the complete destruction of this planet Orion, and we're left with a cliffhanger where we're wondering what's going to happen to his son. So this story is a very compelling story, and I don't want to really spoil it because this comic is great, and I really want you to go out here and pick this comic up, because this is one that I highly recommend you pick up, because this comic does a great job of showing you how manga really works. It does a great job of setting up the story in this Orion saga, and it does a great job of presenting African American fantasy, where we see these strong, positive African American characters, powerful, strong men being leaders, and we see women being helpmeets and supports to their men. And one of the things I like seeing about it is that we get to see an African American civilization, a black interstellar civilization, and we get to see a completely different black culture. I mean, Chris Brown has a very vivid imagination, and it all comes out on the page, and the art just comes to life here. I mean, this feels just like the mangas you would get in Japan, and that are imported to you, like the One Pieces, the Narutos, the Dragon Ball Zs. They do it. Chris and Jesus do a great job of setting up this saga with this first issue, and at $1.99, I feel like I didn't pay enough. I wish I could have paid more for this book, because they just do such a great job on this first issue that it leaves me wanting more. And that's one of the reasons why I want to share this book with you, because I want to see more readers come and pick up this Omega Black, because this Omega Black it looks like the pinnacle of great storytelling in this first issue, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking up the second issue, which is coming out next week, because this story is so good that I'm really eager to continue reading it. If this is the start of what these guys are going to do with this manga, I have a feeling this is going to be a very great series, because it's really rock solid. The writing is rock solid. The dialogue is top notch. The characterizations are on point, and everything about this manga is extremely strong. I look at this manga, it's as strong as the Marvel comics, the DC comics, and the Japanese manga out here. And this book, if it got more exposure, could really seriously start to really build an audience. And I want to help this book build this audience, because I'm going to leave a link to it in the description box, because this Omega Black is a comic you definitely have to come out here, pick up, and support. It's a book that I highly recommend, and it's a book that I highly recommend you go out and share with your readers, because Chris Brown and Jesus Pequeño, they're setting up what is the start of what I believe to be a great saga, a great piece of African American fantasy, and a great piece of African American manga. You can pick up the first issue of Omega Black on Comixology, and I believe there's a paperback edition of that first issue you can pick up, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.